Ruination Day. Donald Trump's mindless tariffs will cause havoc. The rest of the world can limit the damage.
If you failed to spot America being looted, pillaged, raped and plundered by nations near and far, or it being cruelly denied a turn to prosper, then congratulations, you have a firmer grip on reality than the President of the United States. It's hard to know which is more unsettling, that the leader of the free world could spout complete drivel about its most successful and admired economy, or the fact that on April 2nd, spurred on by his delusions, Donald Trump announced the biggest break in America's trade policy in over a century and committed the most profound, harmful and unnecessary economic error in the modern era. Speaking in the Rose Garden of the White House, the president announced new reciprocal tariffs on almost all America's trading partners. There will be levies of 34% on China, 27% on India, 24% on Japan, and 20% on the European Union. Many small economies face swinging rates. All targets face a tariff of at least 10%. Including existing duties, the total levy on China will now be 65%. Canada and Mexico were spared additional tariffs, and the new levies will not be added to industry-specific measures, such as a 25% tariff on cars or a promised tariff on semiconductors. But America's overall tariff rate will soar above its Depression-era level back to the 19th century. Mr. Trump called it one of the most important days in American history. He is almost right. His Liberation Day heralds America's total abandonment of the World Trading Order and embrace of protectionism. The question for countries reeling from the president's mindless vandalism is how to limit the damage. Almost everything Mr. Trump said this week on history, economics, and the technicalities of trade were utterly deluded. His reading of history is upside down. He has long glorified the high tariff, low income tax era of the late 19th century. In fact, the best scholarship shows that tariffs impeded the economy back then. He has now added the bizarre claim that lifting tariffs caused the Depression of the 1930s and that the Smoot-Hawley tariffs were too late to rescue the situation. The reality is that tariffs made the Depression much worse, just as they will harm all economies today. It was the painstaking rounds of trade talks in the subsequent 80 years that lowered tariffs and helped increase prosperity. On economics, Mr. Trump's assertions are flat-out nonsense. The president says tariffs are needed to close America's trade deficit, which he sees as a transfer of wealth to foreigners. Yet, as any of the president's economists could have told him, this overall deficit arises because Americans choose to save less than their country invests. And crucially, this long-running reality has not stopped its economy from outpacing the rest of the G7 for over 3 decades. There is no reason why his extra tariffs should eliminate the deficit. Insisting on balanced trade with every trading partner individually is bonkers, like suggesting that Texas would be richer if it insisted on balanced trade with each of the other 49 states, or asking a company to ensure that each of its suppliers is also a customer. And Mr. Trump's grasp of the technicalities was pathetic. He suggested that the new tariffs were based on an assessment of a country's tariffs against America, plus currency manipulation and other supposed distortions, such as value-added tax. But it looks as if officials set the tariffs using a formula that takes America's bilateral trade deficit as a share of goods imported from each country and halves it, which is almost as random as taxing you on the number of vowels in your name. This catalogue of foolishness will bring needless harm to America. Consumers will pay more and have less choice. Raising the price of parts for America's manufacturers while relieving them of the discipline of foreign competition will make them flabby. As stock market futures tumbled, shares in Nike, which has factories in Vietnam, tariff 46%, fell by 7%. Does Mr. Trump really think Americans would be better off if only they sewed their own running shoes? The rest of the world will share in the disaster and must decide what to do. One question is whether to retaliate. Politicians should be cautious. Pace, Mr. Trump, trade barriers harm those who put them up. Because they are more likely to cause Mr. Trump to double down than retreat, they risk making things worse, possibly catastrophically so, as in the 1930s. Instead, government should focus on increasing trade flows among themselves, especially in the services that power the 21st century economy. With a share of final demand for imports of only 15%, America does not dominate global trade the way it does global finance or military spending. Even if it halted imports entirely, on current trends, 100 of its trading partners would have recovered all their lost exports within just 5 years, calculates Global Trade Alert, a think tank. The EU, the 12 members of the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, or CPTPP, South Korea and small open economies like Norway account for 34% of global demand for imports. Should this effort include China? Many in the West think that China's state-owned enterprises violate the spirit of global trading rules, and they have in the past used exports to soak up surplus capacity. Those worries will worsen if more Chinese goods are redirected away from America. Building a trading system with China is desirable, but will be viable only if it rebalances its economy towards domestic demand to ease worries about dumping. Also, China could be required to transfer technology and invest in production in Europe in exchange for lower tariffs. The EU should centralise its investment rules so that it can strike deals covering FDI, and it should overcome its aversion to big trade pacts and sign up to the CPTPP, which has ways of resolving some disputes. If this seems gruelling and slow, that is because integration always is. Throwing up barriers is easier and faster. There is no avoiding the havoc Mr. Trump has wrought, but that does not mean his foolishness is destined to triumph.